Last topic we want to cover is some F1. Obviously, it's
looking forward to it all week.
The boys to my right and my left. It is your forte. I'm going to go for a quick bathroom break, but you take it away, please, Sean and Muggs.
Yes, Muggs, do you want to restart those highlights? Everyone's probably seen the results in the news. We'll run through the race and the key moments probably from the race. But it was the Max Verstappen versus Lewis Hamilton final race. Winner takes all.
It was.
And, you know, they started 1 and 2. Max was on pole. Lewis was second. And what an absolute fucking great race it ended up being. Give me some high-level thoughts, James, before we jump into some of the core moments.
Well, yeah, very... very exciting, very contentious at the end. Yeah, so really the start and end was everything everyone's talking about. Everything in between. Yeah.
I really didn't focus on anything else that happened in this race besides what was happening with 1 and 2.
If you want to,
I couldn't tell you any of the other results. I think Bottas finished somewhere good. But besides that, like, none of it else mattered. It was all focused on Lewis and Max. And what the storylines are. I think for a race, if you're going to make a movie about a race, this is the one you'd make it about, because the storylines throughout the entire thing was kind of really got you engaged and draw you back in. And like, I don't want to say it was some bits felt staged, but it's just the way it kind of flowed. Like it just happened exactly like it would in a script.
Like everything that has happened between these two drivers, Hamilton and Verstappen, throughout the entire season happened again within this one race. So this one race was like a culmination of everything, of the entire season for them. Right from the point of they were both on exactly the same points, so you had to you had to beat the other person to win the championship. To all of the racing on the field, all the pit changes and all that sort of stuff, the strategies behind it. It was like, absolutely crazy. Even to that, like, to you talking about movies, like I've already seen people saying, I can't wait for season 4 of that Netflix Drive to Survive.
Drive to Survive, like the end of the season celebration.
Season is going, next season's that show is going to be crazy.
Because like we've already had some of the interesting radio messages that came from the drivers at the end of the race. We'll get to that in a minute.
The entire field,
But it's been crazy, kind of the reactions from this race in the F1. So there's probably 3 big moments. As any good story, beginning, middle, and end. So if we start off with the first moment from this race, which was lap 1, Lewis gets the way better start than Max. Does take
Max
the lead
on
the first corner. But then Max, of course, has got slipstream going into the long straights, and then takes the dive and the lunge. I think that's turn 5 from memory.
5 or 6,
So what was interesting is Max stays on the course here, and we've just got it playing for us. He doesn't cross over the white lines. He's got position. And then Lewis, of course, as you can see, is running down the road here after being pushed wide.
It looks like wheels touch.
They don't touch.
No, they don't.
So they don't end up touching. What I thought was interesting is Lewis takes a really nice angle for himself to drive away from the corner and give himself a nice big lead. But in Brazil, they kind of set the precedent that if you'd stayed on the track and gone off, you'd have to give the place back, which Max had to do for Lewis in that race.
Is that a rule or is it etiquette?
You cut a corner.
It's both essentially, and the stewards will get involved and say, "Hey, give that position back." So by all accounts, Max was probably, my thoughts here, he was in the right here. He stayed on the racing track. It was a deep lunge. Lewis potentially could have also stayed closer to the corner instead of taking much of an advantage. I don't think he really gave that advantage back. I think he backed off in a corner where they would have got the timing down to being close, but then would have accelerated out and regained that gap, being strategic as they do. But I thought Max was entitled to that position, and I think it was a wrong call not giving.
It was very strange.
Max the position back.
Very strange. I never saw. Hamilton was in front the whole time, and he didn't look like he was.
Yeah, he seemed to maintain that 2-second gap the entire time. So that's why I think like it must have been a corner or something where they both came slowed into the corner so that it looked like he'd given up the time, so it was back to like a 1 second gap. But then he's accelerated away, which then doesn't give back anything there. Plus, it didn't put Hamilton behind Max where he probably should have been.
No,
where they could then fight it out again. So,
taking that corner, if Hamilton didn't run off, Max would have taken the corner and would have been in first place. So, he definitely was. It was definitely pretty light on in terms of, I guess, any sort of repercussions from that.
Yeah.
And I suppose we'll touch on the aftermath of the race, but it was kind of reminiscent of last week where the race director, Michael Massey, was like...
Australian, by the way.
Yeah. Not that we might want to distance ourselves.
We haven't shouted him a
bit
out, but yes.
No, where it was sort of like very vague, very ambiguous, gave the advantage back, keep driving sort of thing.
Yeah. Win it on the road, essentially, which I think might have played into some of the later conversations, but we'll get to that in a minute. So the second kind of really big moment throughout this race was Checo, because so Sergio Perez, because from that, Lewis and Mercedes are dominating. They're winning through the pit strategy. They clearly got the faster car. They've got a 10-second gap on Max, but Red Bull have strategically left Perez out and put him in a position where Lewis is going to have to overtake him.
Yeah.
So Lewis has come right up onto him, and everyone's saying he should probably breeze past him. Better tires. Perez's tires have cooked. That's going to it'll be an easy overtake for Lewis. But Perez, ultimate teammate, does an absolute fantastic job keeping Lewis behind him to the point that I think at the point it was probably about 7-second gap, because Verstappen was coming back at Lewis at this point. The 7-second gap, he closed it all the way down to Max being right behind Lewis. So really expert driving and really ballsy driving. We'll see the highlights here in a minute. But
it's right here.
I think, and Max after the race said, huge thanks to Checo for doing that job. Like, it was super impressive the way he kind of brought that into play, bringing the race closer. Again, added more intrigue to this, the teamwork, the strategy part of it. Again, going to my point about this being a bit of a movie here. You need a supporting act for Max to even get considered in the potentially winning this, because Lewis is driving away with it at this point. He's got the lead and really pushing it. So Monks, what did you think of Checo?
Yeah, no, great. I mean, I sort of mentioned it last week. This track definitely seemed to favour Mercedes with their quick engine. Not so much Red Bull, where they do benefit from the... Yeah, exactly. Checo to be able to hold out Hamilton for so long to let Max sort of catch up. Superb.
Because he did it. You can see it here. He did an excellent job maintaining position in the straights. To then also maintain the lead within the straights. So then during the corners, he could burn off a lot of extra speed, which is very hard for to be overtaken in that spot anyway. So Lewis is kind of getting blocked essentially. There's a little bit of gamesmanship in this point as well, but also I'd say the teamwork in that there's the sportsmanship side of it. It's like Checo's essentially throwing his race away here at this point to try and put Max in a position, because he's 8 seconds behind here now with Lewis, and it was just impressive driving for mine, because there's like the DRS to come on a big straight, should be job done. And, the way Checo kind of put that car in, really big dive after getting overtaken as well to regain that position, was really impressive. So, and then boom, straight back down, maintains it. Like, it was such a fiery kind of race, and then keeps it here, and he's slowing it down all the while.
I think even on radio, Hamilton was said, this is dangerous driving. So just to prove the point of how aggressive Sergio was in trying to make sure that he kept in front of Hamilton for as long as possible.
Yeah, I'm still amazed and impressed at what a job he did, essentially to burn off a full 8-second gap in an F1 against the two best drivers in the world layers.
That's it.
Madness. And it's slowing him all the while down, and you just see the seconds just ticking down, and then Max just appearing on the straight towards there. Another awesome storyline in all of this.
Yeah, I mean, we look at the start of the season with Sergio joining the team. Like normally, you see someone from AlphaTauri or the development squad team coming up and taking that second seat to Verstappen. So to bring someone else,
people are worried about him leaving F1. Like he wasn't going to get a seat for this year, and then he's done an excellent job at Red Bull, and then to defend this whole way here, just the sight.
There you go. Yeah,
the sight here of in a moment where they're going down the straight, and then you just see Max in the background chasing them down, and Lewis is going to get Perez at some point. He gets him here, but just to see Max is there in the background, you're just like, wow, game on, race on.
So again, that still works perfectly into their favor. Like Verstappen's been able to close the gap to get within Perez's slipstream.
Yeah,
and then that's just the stepping stone for him. He needs to chase down Hamilton.
So people will say Hamilton then drives away from Max in this. Like he regains and is the faster car, and then he's taking away. But the main kind of gain that this gave Max was to be in the pit window, and I think, Max, you might want to skip some of the highlights from here on out. Because they kind of held station here, 1 and 2, chasing each other. There was a virtual safety car throughout because I think it was either Mazepin or Schumacher's. Antonio Gino. I can't even say Giovinazzi car finish, so they had to do a virtual for that. So he got tyres in that space there. Lewis maintained, of course. Track position didn't change his tyres. So Verstappen's still chasing, but can't really get any closer besides staying in that kind of pit window, which would always make it difficult for Hamilton to make a tyre stop. And very much, I think it was lap 50, they were talking to Christian Horner on the radio. They were down by 10 seconds at this point.
Well, it was lap 38 out of 58. Verstappen was 22 seconds behind Hamilton with that pit stop.
Yeah.
And in traffic as well.
In traffic, and he's worked his way back. So
a second lap.
Yeah. So this is the big incident. This is lap 55. But lap 50, they're talking to Christian Horner on the commentary on the blower, and he basically said, they're doing excellent. We're really trying our best here. They're much faster than we are. We really need a miracle. Enter Nicholas Latifi on lap 55 to be that miracle, to have a big crash, calls in a full safety car because they need to move the car, move all the debris. Max pits instantly. There it is, the big crash. Max pits instantly for his tyres and then comes back out of safety car. I think just give the replay of the actual smash.
So Hamilton here is already crossed past pit entry and the start line, really.
Yep.
So he's on his next lap, and then he doesn't have the opportunity to pit.
No. So I don't think they'll show the highlight there of the crash. They'll just show the aftermath.
Accident or fishy?
No, the back tyres slipped out on him and he went straight in the wall. Like it was
accidental.
Not something he'd want to be doing for Latifi.
It has happened before in Singapore. I can't remember who it was. I think Alonso might have been involved. Someone crashed so that someone could win the championship, but the person who crashed was on the same team as the person who won.
Not this one, Latifi.
This isn't.
So this is Mercedes' worst nightmare, of course, a safety car to finish this race off because Max jumps straight in, gets the super softs, the best tyres they could, stickiest tyres they could put on for the rest of this racetrack. There's 5 official laps to go to finish off the race. They have to get the car. They got to clear the car out, Latifi's car that is, to then regain racing. So they got to stay behind the safety car. So the reason, Mercedes didn't come in, they didn't want to lose track position, but also they weren't sure if the race would restart. So if they lose track position and they get tyres and they're actually second to Max, there might not be any laps in there. So there's a lot of risk and reward in this. So Red Bull, of course, took the big risk in this. The big story, though, was after the pit stop, Hamilton's won. Max is second, but there's 5 cars in between them. So as in back markers, lap cars. So again, talking about regulations, there's been a bit of back and forth on how to actually do the regulations, but supposedly it's meant to be all lap cars get through.
No,
but it has
has the word any.
But
Normally you do let all back markers go through.
And Massa had used in a race last year to say it had to be all cars, and everyone was slamming him for taking so long behind the safety car. So what they do is they leave the back markers to go through between the cars, but not all the ones behind it. So Daniel Ricciardo, who's in third here, to watch this spectacle, is not in position. He's essentially running 12th at this point. So it leaves it's a 1-2 tussle between Hamilton for Max for one flying lap to finish the race. Max maybe slightly pulls ahead, but doesn't gain an advantage. It lets Lewis also had slowed to almost a stop. He's crawling,
braking very heavily.
Yeah, to kind of trying to throw them off. But then they've got one final flying lap to go. Max is on the better tires. But they've got to compete at this point. That's my kind of point. There's still racing to be had. Max has got to get a job done here.
Still half a second behind.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
which is a long way in Formula One.
Bloody oath it is.
Yeah.
0.44 for those listening at home.
He takes a really early dive though on Hamilton, which I thought was kind of interesting. I thought he might use the DRS more, but he's got it here because then Hamilton has DRS on the bonus on the straight. So
you don't get DRS after safety car.
True, sorry. But he gets the slipstream. So he took the lead position. I guess he want track position. Hamilton goes wide through the first straight and still is really close to Max here and closing. I don't know why Lewis didn't. Max had the door closed. But when he starts going out, Max comes across. I would have thought maybe that inside line is the only line he could have potentially taken to get that position back. But at this point, Lewis has essentially given up. He's like, Max, I can't beat him from here. They're the corners I could potentially do it. And Max runs away to win the race. After Lewis had, I think, led almost every single lap so far, and to be world champion, Max being world champion.
First time.
First time for him, 20 under 25, I'd say. I can't remember if he's 23 or not, but super young.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's 23.
Yeah. Prevents Lewis from getting his 8. The scenes, though, the Red Bull guys going crazy. They got their miracle in the end. I guess my point, a couple points to talk about. What do you think about the decision of letting the race cars go? They're letting the lap drivers between them go.
Yeah.
So you get a flying last lap race.
I don't mind it. I think it happened too late.
Yeah, maybe make that decision a little bit earlier.
You have to make that decision a lot earlier. You can't, you got to let him race for the championship. You can't let this championship end in a safety car.
Yeah.
So I reckon,
I also agree on the racing point there. If they restart the last lap anyway, and they got 5 back markers there, they got to get out of the way of blue flags. You probably don't get the spectacle.
Yeah,
people want to see racing and they want to see racing. I think Michael Massey's done the world a solid here to get a result. Everyone will be pissy about regulations, the fans will be pissy, but the absolute spectacle, one last lap, do or die, see who wins to get the result. It was an amazing final lap, an amazing kind of end to what was ended up being a pretty interesting race throughout.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was great spectacle. It is unfortunate that there has been so much controversy surrounding it, especially being
the appeals, etc., etc.
I guess
they withdrew the final one today, so there's no formal.
Yes,
it's done and dusted. Max
That's
won
it.
the championship, so they can't give it back or anything like that.
No, and it's rough to see the season end with so much controversy, but it is great that they'll at least have that final lap.
But what a spectacle
race!
Ended on an absolute spectacle.
Unbelievable.
Watching it live, I couldn't believe it. But again, I'll go to the storylines, the movie-esque, the quotes throughout. We need a miracle. We got a miracle. and the clearing of the cars. Give us a final lap.
And the draw for the casual fan, like myself, it got me intrigued. It got me really intrigued.
Yeah.
That's
good. So yeah, hopefully, it sets up for a great season next season.
And Lewis signed that 3-year deal. He's going to be back next year, chasing his 8th.
Well, Toto, I think, came out last couple of weeks saying, saying it was more just comments as to whether or not
he was pissed,
Hamilton,
by the way. He's absolutely pissed about the result in this.
He was, still is. I did see. That being said, Mercedes did win the Constructors' Championship, and I think I did see some stuff on social media. They were partying, they were clubbing, and Toto was very happy at those parties. But yeah, I think he's sort of said it's obviously hit Hamilton hard, so he doesn't know what will happen next season. I'm sure Hamilton will come back.
He's an absolute competitor.
He wants that 8th championship at the very least.
Plus new cars, like the new challenge. It'd be really interesting to see.
Plus Sir Lewis.
Yeah,
we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, so he's got George Russell as his teammate as well.
Yeah,
which will be interesting. Great running partner, but then also there will be a lot of pressure, a lot of competition within that garage as well.
Yes.
But yeah, that leads on to, I suppose, Sir Hamilton now.
Well, yeah, the final notes. Kimi Raikkonen's he retired on the 20th lap, I believe, with car failure. So
he essentially retired himself.
He retired himself.
Put the feet up.
That's it.
He's heading to the sauna.
The fans did him a solid, though. He did get driver of the day. So that was really good to see. But yeah, like you said, Lewis Hamilton, he was announced to be knighted months ago, but he officially had his knighting happening. Of course, the season's over, so he could go home and get that done. So he's been officially now Sir Lewis Hamilton for his...
Quite young to get knighted, you'd think.
Yeah, well, for his service to motorsport and then the platform he uses to do all his charity work, etc. So some other kind of interesting notes. They were 1 and 2, and I think nearly every race, but a couple of them. Only one team had a 1-2 this year, and that was McLaren with Ricciardo and Norris in Monza, which is kind of a bit different considering Mercedes really dominated the Constructors' Championship and how dominant those two teams were. So, honestly, I thought it was a fitting end to a really good season of close combat and close racing. So to see it end that way, I think amazing.
Yeah. Again, like I would have liked to have seen, like I'll give him like 2 laps of racing to try and make it look or feel a little bit more competitive. I don't know, what Mercedes' appetite would have been to pit and put new softs on. But yeah, even to that, so the FIA had their awards night.
I heard this was a shit show.
Yeah, well, so Mercedes didn't send through any of the winning championship cars, so FIA being all of motorsports. So they didn't send any of their cars to the presentation. And then, I mean, Hamilton was probably busy within the time frame of the awards ceremony, but neither Hamilton or Toto went to the awards nights in a little bit of a protest. And yeah, was there any other news?
Well, there wasn't a huge amount of massive other news besides... that I think Max, of course, got his trophy. I think Lewis was most popular driver or something like that. Got a vote. Of course, wasn't there to get his award. And I guess back onto the FIA, and they're doing they're doing a full review. There'll probably be new rules in regards to safety car, and potentially Michael Massa will lose his job as the scapegoat from all this. So.
One change that I have already made is there'll be less or no radio between the race director and the teams during the race. So during the race, we did hear both Christian Horner and Toto getting onto.
It's interesting because they do a lot of talking beforehand. We now see more of the talking because they were providing that audio to the audience. Through Sky TV, through Sky Race TV, whatever it is, the British guys that have F1. So they had access to that so they could play some of that radio. But I thought that it kind of added to the intrigue with like Toto Wolff going, no, don't do this to us. And then Christian Horner kind of trying to answer of like, what's going on? Why haven't they given this position back? Like I think that adds to it.
It does add to it, but I think that was also starting to influence decisions in the race. And I think we did see that in the last couple of races.
We saw it last race where Michael Massey said, I can't push I can only push buttons fast enough. So
that's it. So, maybe just
Maybe it
gotta
needs to
keep
be more than one person job. I don't know.
maybe, don't know.
Just going back to the list of youngest people to be knighted in the sporting arena, Andy Murray is younger than Lewis Hamilton. But pretty hard pressed finding another one younger than that.